So I had trouble finding a balancer for somebody to balance my fan for my TR3. And I ended up, I tried and tried and tried and tried, and I ended up building my own jig based on information on the internet and so on. I wanted to document it for the next time I do it. So this jig is basically, it's a couple of hacksaw blades with a relief cut in a piece of wood, set apart, the width of the fan and the extension, and I ended up cutting the box in two, and I'll explain why in a minute. And you can see that the fan sits on it like this, and one side is up a little higher than the other. Up sits a little proud because the axle that this rides on is a socket, a long deep socket on this side, a deep socket on this side. I had two sockets that were very, very close, but they weren't close enough so that I wasn't getting wobble. The fan extender isn't completely round, and so a piece of tape wasn't enough. So I put some aluminum shim stock made out of a Fresca can around the socket and stuck it in there and made it really tight so it doesn't wobble on either axis. And the fan extension is actually a little oblong along the axis of the numbers here. So I had to put an extra little piece of shim under here and one on the other side to get this socket to be absolutely rock solid. The second thing that's really important to note is that this must be absolutely level. I've moved it so it's not quite level, and now it's moving around on me a little bit. But it has to be absolutely level. I put a long level on each of these, and I shimmed up. There's a washer under this piece of tape. I got the tape on there to keep the washer in place, but I've spent a lot of time getting this level. The other eccentricity about this particular leveler is you would expect that the fan would just roll one way or roll the other if it's out of balance, but that's not the case because this socket is smaller than this socket. So when they roll different periods. They roll different distances, and so what will actually happen is that the socket, you'll get a pendulum effect. So if you watch, I'll do this, and a balanced blade will actually rock back and forth in a pendulum effect. And I'm having a little difficult time getting it done right at the moment, but that's the idea. And what'll happen is it'll wobble, and it'll get out of line. You'll see there's a line etched on either side. It's important that these sockets, every time you change this, that you recenter the socket on the line so that it's working directly through the axis. I thought about creating a little marker that came out of here, or I don't have a lathe, so I couldn't turn this down and have these both be the same size on either side. This is what I had. So, okay, so how did I use this? What lessons did I learn? How do I do it again? The biggest thing I learned was that, or the first thing I learned is that toss these. They're too heavy. What I did was I tried to balance it all in one piece, but it was too hard. It was too many things going on. And what I discovered was I took the fan off of the extender and I balanced just the extender first. And I kept rotating it and finding the heavy side. I got the heavy side to go down. Once the heavy side was straight down, I put little weights, and I used washers. I used some 1/4-inch washers here at 1/10 of an ounce each as I weighed them up on the scale. 1/10 of an ounce each, and I put as many as I needed on here to get this to not turn one way, not continue to turn down, and I would turn the fan 90 degrees, turn the fan 90 degrees, turn the fan 90 degrees, and watch for it to wobble, and then just give it the tiniest push, like that, and watch for it to see if it would send one fan blade down. When I got it to the point where it wouldn't do that, or it came very close to not doing that, I said good enough, and I balanced just this piece. Well, I found that these nuts here were just about the right weight, and I actually need to use nuts here. I wanted these, so I'm going to use these nuts here that balance the extender part of it. So the extender was almost balanced. It wasn't perfect, but it was almost balanced. So once I had the extender balanced, I came out and I added and I checked the fan. I put the fan on its own little axle. Where did I set that down at? And again, a socket was just perfect. And I put I brought this box close together, put just the fan on it, and I verified which side of the fan was heavy, checking the little dimple that's in the fan. And so I knew which side of the fan was heavy already. I put the fan back on the hub, and I started by putting washers. Let me make sure I don't drop that off the back side. I put washers under the heads of the bolts, and by getting and I found out I only need one extra washer under each of these bolts to get this thing balanced. And you can see if it rocks like it's out of being completely square. You have to continue to make sure it's level. You have to continue to make sure it's square on these lines. Okay, square, it's right centered in the line. And I'm sure I'm not quite level anymore. But okay, so it's square on the line, and the idea is, yeah, it's going downhill. But the idea is when it's right, it will rock just like this. It'll just go back and forth like this, just like that. If it goes all the way down, if it goes down like that, you know you're a little bit out of balance. And what I would do when I'm checking the balance real quickly is I just take another washer and put it on the bolt here to add the weight. And you just add weight to whatever side's up, you add the weight there. It should really only require the weights on the back, the weights on the extender where most of the imbalance was, and a little bit of opposite weight on this side to get it dialed in just right. This is very, very close. I got to the point with it where I've got these little tiny stainless steel washers which weigh next to nothing, and I got to the point where it would balance, and I could influence the way it rotated by simply adding a washer to the to one of the nuts there. It would change the rotation, and I knew then I was balanced within the within that much weight, and that's good enough at that distance, and I think that's good enough for me considering what it was. Anyway, that's my homemade fan balancer. I wish I could do a dynamic balancer, but it just scared me. The idea of spinning this thing, the idea is to spin it and then put then connect a wire, a piece of stiff wire to it or something like that, and watch the vibration, and to the motor or to the mounts, watch the vibration, or get an app for your phone that watches the vibration, and as soon as you get the minimal vibration you have, that's where it's most balanced. That scared me. I didn't want to spin this thing at 1,000 RPM or 2,000 RPM in my shop and send it flying and decapitate myself or something. So I am really happy. This is far better balanced than it was on the when it was on the car before. And again, the reason it's rocking is it's out of center, and I'm not level. I'm not level. That's my fan balancer. Anyway, hope it was helpful.